The new opening day is July 23rd with a couple of games, an East Coast game and a West Coast game. Everybody will be playing starting on the 24th. But leading up to that, they're having about 2 weeks or 3 weeks of what they're calling spring training at their home stadiums. And so for the last 4 days, a few of us have been covering these workouts. And I just wanted to have a little session just to talk about what it's like on covering baseball and the things that have been instituted to keep social distancing and to keep health, health concerns, to follow health concerns. And I think some of these things that we're doing at these workouts will certainly translate into college sports, when college sports start up, and then when the NFL starts up, hopefully in September. So I brought in Keith Birmingham and Jose Fajardo to talk about their experiences covering their local teams, and just to show some pictures and to give their impressions about what it's like to be in these stadiums that hold 50,000 and they're totally empty. Which one do you guys want to start off? Jose?
Let me.
Jose, you look so clean. God, I can't.
That N95 mask, man. This is all N95.
I can't stop staring.
This is the coronavirus shaving opportunity. I haven't grown a beard in 3 months, and it's killing me. So this is the Twitter account for Oakland A's, and they send it out every morning. And we have, instead of waiting for that email, or we have to basically go in and check every morning about their schedules. Here's Jeff Chu, waiting to get checked in. John Mabenglo getting a temperature check before he walks into. And by the way, at the Oakland A's, they make us wear gloves. I don't know about you guys, but we have to be wearing, the photographers have to wear gloves when they go in. But not the reporters, just the photographers. There's John. They set up these spots for us, but the problem is they give us 3 hours, but they give us till 3 o'clock or 3:30 to shoot, but we're not allowed to stay there. So I don't know. I don't know why we have a workstation for us, because we're usually photographing it and then we have to take off anyways right away. So I've been sending all my photos from the car. As you can see, this is John coming down from the stairs. And here's Scott Strazzani for the Chronicle. Pretty much we've all keep around 6 feet of distance. And this is a little different from other stadiums from what I've heard. The Oakland A's are actually letting us onto field level, which is really nice. The only problem we're having is just trying to shoot through the netting, which is basically, it's aged. So there's a lot of dust on it and stuff. So it kind of makes it hard to shoot through, but it beats being up on the plaza level. And of course, this is when we're able to send between downtime at the end, but then like I said, we're being kicked out really quickly. About 15 minutes after the practice is over, we're escorted out. Here's an example of just when we get there, nothing, nobody there. And one of the first things I tried to do was try to illustrate, basically the time frame, the time lapse that's happened. So we found a bunch of cobwebs, we found all this litter, but then immediately after making this picture, I got yelled at by the PR person because I'm not supposed to be in this area. And I was trying to ask him, why is that? He says, well, if you're over here, you're not supposed to be. Now we have to disinfect this whole area, which I was laughing because I really don't think they do any cleaning at all. And practices are probably, if you don't know, I don't know about you, Keith, but I have no idea who some of these players are. I'd say I only know 7. And there's 60 guys. And so everybody's out there and I'm like, who's that? Or, oh, I know that guy, that's the manager, right? But it's really hard trying to identify these players with them wearing masks. So that was probably the hardest thing to do, is ID them. And then this guy, apparently this is a pitcher who shaved his head, didn't even recognize him, but mostly he's, the hard part is trying to figure out the IDs on this. And of course, some of the players have been really good on social distancing, but a lot of them have not. Some, of course, take off their masks, which is fine. And, but some are really, really careful and keep the thing on the whole entire time. And I bumped into Michael Zagaris, the Oakland A's team photographer who was there. And as you can see, he's wearing gloves, and he's too cool for school, so he doesn't wear a mask. He wears a bandana. And like I said, like these guys here, no clue who they are. I ended up finding out later that they're catchers. And so, and by the way, all the balls that are used, they basically put them onto buckets that are strategically placed around the field. So they're only used one time and that's it. And so they all get to be placed in and I believe they're sanitized before they come back out, of course. But what process they do it, I do not know at all. This is the team manager, Bob Melvin. And this is like the last frame I made when I was exiting. As you can tell, they're staying pretty distant, but at the same time, a lot of players are still not wearing their masks all the time. All right, so one of the things I wanted to talk about real quick was something about photos from the past. Bert, if you don't mind if I just show this real quick, that I feel like we're not gonna have this anymore. And this was my first World Series, which was back in 2002 at Angel Stadium. And one of the things that, you know, crowdedness, you know, being inside this is at AT&T Park. We're definitely not going to see stuff like this anymore, or hanging out in the dugout before the game, and especially, you know, fireworks, you know, big crowds. They're all things that are going to have disappeared for a while, and it'll be really interesting to see. Oh, and also going away games. This is in Kansas City. I really don't think we're going to cover anything in the way nowadays, and especially you know, anything that happens on the field before the game, especially with the access we have. Photos like this are going to disappear, and so that's what kind of bums me out. Where we had this accessibility to go in and be part and get these little moments that will be gone forever. That, well, not ever, in a couple of years maybe, but for me, you know, you can't get something like this from Upper Deck, you know. And this is Aaron Judge from the New York Yankees. And this one always cracks me up. Who gives their kid to a mascot? But like this, you know, double plays, because once we're in a spot, I don't believe that we're going to be allowed to move. So it'll be very interesting to see. You have to pick your spot and stay in your spot the entire time. So there's going to be a lot of photos that I believe we're going to be missing out a lot, that we wish that we got to on one side or the other. And especially after the game, when we were allowed to go onto the field, I think that's a thing of the past for the time being, and especially the dugout. So thank you very much. I'll stop sharing here and hand it back to Bert.
Yeah, that's one of the concerns I think that most of us have, and you're actually, and then looking at some other images from other publications and other stadiums. You know, that's why one of the reasons why I think it's a great that we have you talking about the situation in Oakland, and then Keith talking about what we're looking at here at Dodger Stadium, because we're talking about two different kind of shooting situations. We are basically limited to shooting from behind the second we're two sections up in the concourse level, and then also shooting through a pretty thick netting. So getting those kind of, you know, when I'll wait until Keith shows his images, but there's definitely a distinct difference in what coverage will look like if you're lower like you are, and then what we're faced with at Dodger Stadium. But anyway, Keith, why don't you go ahead and take it now and talk about what the situation is here in LA with the LA Dodgers.
Sure. Well, it's similar in that we have to drive up and, you know, get our temperature checked and do all that. And it is a little crazy lately, because each day has been different times at the Dodgers. I mean, a different time every day. It went from being noon, 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and then like 10 in the morning, and then back to
Uh-oh.
5:30 or something like that. So I would tell this: if you're going into baseball, if you're going to shoot it, even at this time, go into it with an open, with open eyes, and you know, make of it what you can, and it'll work out. Let me see if I can get the screen. What I'm doing here. Let's see. Might take a second here. If you got questions, ask them. Let me see.
Is your puppy there?
Yeah, he's running around. I may lose you for a second because it's asking me to quit the screen for Zoom so you can record it. So hold on a second. If I lose
Has
it.
there been any talk of the photographers actually having to get tested?
No, not to my knowledge.
Let's see.
So far, I have not heard. I mean, I've been in contact with some other photographers outside of California, and so far, that's one of there has not been any talk about testing. It'll be interesting to see. You do have to sign a 3-page medical waiver, basically saying we won't sue the team, Major League Baseball, or anybody else if we come down with coronavirus. But I kind of wonder about that. I wonder if that that may be a situation where unlike the sports that are locked down like MLS and hockey and the NBA, where everybody's locked down in the bubble, where we're coming in from the outside. The players have to be tested every couple of days. Where it may be I mean, right now we're so far away from the players or from anybody that I don't think it's really it's not really an issue. But anyway, go ahead and take it away, Keith.
Okay. Well, one thing they haven't done, I don't know what they're doing up there, but they have not done a security check at all. Checked bags, looked at anything,
Really?
which I find kind of interesting. So, yeah, not a thing.
Well,
Hold on, I'm trying to get to my page
so,
here.
Yeah.
Let's see. There we go. Let me see. Is it sharing yet? Hold on, still contact sheet?
Yeah, we still see contact sheets. All I need to do is go into slideshow or just show large previews.
There we go, right? So that's kind of the same way we social distance. And if you saw, I don't know if Bert, you put that little video up yet of us going in. That was pretty cool. So same kind of thing. You have to have your own pin. They won't supply you with a pin, right, Bert? So they make you have your own pin.
Yeah. Thankfully, you had a pen that I could borrow, or I'd probably still be standing outside the Will Call trying to get in for the first. And she was nice about it. The young woman who was handing out credentials says, "Well, I could loan you a pen, but I'd have to have somebody come in and sanitize it."
Yeah. I'm like, I hear, take this one, go. So first off, right, I came in. I got there early because at first they said it was at 12 o'clock. And then I got it was like 12:15. I got there, and the guy at the gate, it's supposed to be at 12:10. And I'm like, well, it's 12:15. And he goes, oh, hold on. They just changed it to 12:30. So I pulled out and waited with all the TV trucks and everybody outside. They finally let us in. We park in this lot right across from the Dodger offices, which is different than we normally do. It's all different. We get in line. They have all these little spots marked for us. That's Dylan Hernandez from the LA Times with the face shield on him up there. And then they have little hand sanitizer stations set up all over the place so you can walk through. We walk through the offices level, the executive offices level. And this was one of our first views, just people looking out. We're not supposed to shoot pictures here. We found out later. I think we didn't get yelled at, but a couple, Getty and somebody else got told they had to leave or they would have to sanitize the whole area, which I don't know how they would do that anyway. So this is going down the elevator. They have these stickers all over the place. That's Bert heading down with his gear. At least the elevator was turned on that day, right? So this is our shooting area, which is all the way back up, on the field level concourse area, which is different what you guys had. At least you could see a lot better.
Yeah.
We're kind of 6 feet away. This is kind of our view. That net goes around. You can kind of see this is it from there. We have tables set up in the background for us to work at. And the Wi-Fi, because the MLB came in and set it up for the All-Star game, is screaming fast. It's great. Plus, there's nobody in the stands, right? And we have, if you see up top of the screen there, the network's right above us, all the stuff. So that part is great. So that day it started at 12:30, but the players didn't really come out till 1:30 for anything. And we were there till 6:30. And then nobody came and told us to leave, but it was done. We were pretty much done like a half hour before that. And we left. The John Suhu, the team photographer, comes out and marks each back of the chair with a piece of duct tape. And that's pretty much how it's going to go for the season. So the same kind of thing happened here. We had a lot of players out there that we didn't know who was what, who was who. You know, mask on, no numbers. And with that 40-man roster, there's just a lot of people we couldn't figure out. That's Kershaw. That was one picture I did make overhead when we came in, when I guess we weren't supposed to, but he was throwing, so it took the advantage. It took a couple minutes, and we shot that. And you have Bueller sitting back there, and then Mark Pryor with the masks right behind Kershaw. So I know some of the players, probably more than most, but not everybody. And they did a short workout. He never came on the field after that day. Kershaw did not. And this is kind of, you can see the netting, what I'm shooting through. If you look, that's what we're shooting through. So I'll just run through a few. You can see the net a little bit more. You're trying to get it as much as you can. I'm going to have to bring out like a 400 2.8 and just use 2.8 next time, and even try to cut it down more if I can. I'm using a 2-5. And these are trainers walking with Dustin May, excuse me. And then we had, I think Mookie Betts was our guy of the day, and he never had a mask on, and he didn't really social distance all that much. He was, bumping fist and talking to guys next door, like that. That's Dino, one of the coaches. But Stan Kasten had his, Invisible Man mask on, it looks like, with the glasses and everything. And he was out there walking around the field for a while. It's difficult. It's like spring training, but it's kind of not. I mean, there's obviously nobody around. You can't really go where you want to go. We're stuck in one spot, and we could move all the way to first base. I was on third base if we wanted to, but we couldn't shoot in between, which we tried to argue that point, but they just didn't want us to shoot anywhere in between. There was nobody around, and it would have made for a different angle, but this is where we're at. So we have to make the best of it. Luckily, there were some people milling about, but there wasn't a lot of action going on. I think a couple days later, they had a spring game, inter-squad game, but still, you just have to look for moments, look for masks, look for people doing something. Justin Turner does, at least he wears the Kobe Bryant shirt, something different, fun. And then like Jose they had 3 or 4 guys wandering through the stadium, picking up baseballs. Really, they just had to come by Bert because I think 4, 5, 6 came right at you, close to him. In that area, we just kept getting foul balls hit at us. It didn't look like it was coming from the batters either, so we don't know if somebody was throwing them at us or not. But these guys are collecting them all, and they take them down and then disinfect them, and then they bring them back out. Again, there's our look. So it's a little different. It's not bad. And then this is kind of at the end of the day. They were walking off. You have some of the core players there with Bellinger and Seager, Austin Barnes, Chris Taylor. And then this was one of my last pictures of the day, one of the coaches collecting some balls and walking off the field. And then this is kind of what we looked at for the day before we left. It's pretty simple process. You just have to go out with an open mind. It's baseball. Look for images. Don't sit there and motor drive. And you're going to make pictures. You're going to make something different. But walk in with your camera ready to shoot. And that's what you got to do. I mean, anybody got questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Brian Woolston here. How are you handling IDs for captioning? Sometimes you have to put a name to a mask.
Sure. So I know a lot of the players, and so other photographers were asking me, they don't give out any paper, you don't get a roster or anything. So you got to pull your rosters off their site, the 40-man roster, the coaches, all that stuff. And some of them are difficult. Some you may have to call your writer, the reporter that's there, if they have one, and try to work together to figure it out. And you work with the other photographers around you. And if all else fails, like there was one guy we just could not figure out. But he was a coach from somewhere else, and even John, the team photographer, couldn't figure out at the time. And so we had to work at it, and he actually went down and talked to somebody else, and we found out who the coach was. So it's I forgot who it was now, Bert, but it was the one guy that was like standing right in front of us talking to everybody with the mask on and hugging. And so it's difficult, but you got to work at it best you can to get them. But there's going to be some you're just not going to get.
Yeah, we have one of the tricks I learned was to either photograph the back of their shoes, because some of the players, they put their numbers on the back of the shoe. And then also I was photographing their gloves, because all the Major League Baseball pros have their names on their gloves stitched on there.
So this guy, and it's true. So we shoot, you shoot the bats, the gloves, the back of the shoes, sometimes the hat because it has a number on it, right? All that, we do that. So there's one guy we were trying, he didn't have it on his shoes. He didn't have a bat in his hand, and his glove had 4 initials on it that didn't match anything at all. So, because I'd shot it to look at it, I'm like, okay, it was like B, D, G, D or something like that. And I was like, okay. So, but, it was like, it's one of those things where you go through the whole book of tricks trying to figure it out, right? That's exactly what you do. And then it's funny because I finally got his name, and then maybe an hour later, 45 minutes later, he actually came up in the stands close to us putting little video cameras to shoot. He's a coach. He ended up being a coach, and he was putting video cameras connecting to the chairs. So I'd like, Bert, hey, you can go ask him now who he is and where he's from. He was right there. But it's one of those kind of things like that. You have to do every little thing you can, and you still may not get somebody, but you don't want to get it wrong, So if all else fails, if you're not sure, don't use it.
Yeah, I had one other question. Sorry to hog the time. I'm actually on my way to shoot Cincinnati Reds camp.
No, good.
Credentialing, and now me and this other photographer are splitting the season up here. We've already run into problems with this daily credentialing. He was going to cover one day, so the names are in. Now we're switching. Now it's going to be 1,000 emails in a day. We're hearing rumors of, eventually as the season maybe starts, there will be a season credential. Is anybody else hearing that rumor?
Well, I'll tell you, there's Dodgers have said no. It's going to be the dailies right now. But I'll tell you, like Jose's team's a little different. Their access is a little better than ours, obviously. But there are worse. The Angels are not giving access to just about to anyone. They right now it's 3 photographers, Getty, AP, and Kyoto, because Otani's there. And that's it. Not even the hometown paper, us, the Register, is getting access at this moment. And they've said this season they're just going to use basically the same kind of thing, pool photographers. So we're trying to work on that and get that corrected. So I haven't heard anything on season credentials now. They talked about it a couple weeks ago, but as far as the Dodgers go, it sounds like they're going to go daily credential. And I'm sure that's what MLB has talked about. So I'm sure that's what most teams are going to do.
Yeah,
the Reds might be the least media-friendly team in the league to start with on a normal day, so I can't imagine they're going to make any help for us at all.
I'm surprised the Angels actually, usually they're a lot more lenient about stuff and easier to work with. So I'm surprised they're doing it the way they are. But it is what it is. We're going to fight it and work on it and try to get in. I mean, we're not in. LA Times is not in. So this is your hometown paper and the paper of LA. So I don't know how long that's going to last, but hopefully we'll get in. But it's a different time. So we still go out. We still have people going out there, and they're working around the stadium, trying to do stuff, trying to be creative and show who's out around the stadium. There's people out. There's fans out there wanting to be part of the scene. So you do what you can.
To reiterate what both Jose and Keith have said, that patience is going to be something that is going to be very, very, very important. Working within what we've got. Because I tell you, complaining about anything is not going to get us anywhere. So you have to let like the situation with the Angels. I mean, you got to let your concerns known to the teams if you're getting shut out. To shut out the LA Times and the Orange County Register, and for that matter, USA Today Sports Images, which is a wire service just like Getty and AP, to shut them out, I think is wrong. I mean, I'm not only just saying that from a purely selfish standpoint, but I think overall that at least the hometown papers should be there, and they're not. People have asked why, and we haven't really gotten a real answer as to why they decided to limit it. I give a little bit of what my thoughts when I first showed up there. It was very, very very strange walking in. I mean, I've been in stadiums hours, 4 or 5 hours before game time, and fans are not in the stadium. But I've never been in a stadium that quiet and that empty in my entire life. It was daytime, but it was very, very eerie and very spooky. When we did get over to our photo area, and then the scrimmage I did, or the inter-squad game I did the other day, day before yesterday. I mean, you can hear. I mean, literally, you can hear everything. You can hear clearly the balls and strikes call from the umpire. I could even hear, Bellinger in center field talking to Mookie Betts in right field. I mean, I could hear it. I mean, I couldn't hear
think that's going to change
specific words, but you could literally hear him saying, play this guy this way, or you should move over here. I mean, it's so eerie that it is so quiet. And the thing that's really weird is that they actually had somebody sing the national anthem before that first inter-squad game. And, a guy came out, I don't know if he was who he was because he had a mask on, but he sang the national anthem, and they all lined up on both sides of the dugouts and put their hats over their hearts, and just like a regular national anthem, like a regular game. Brian, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, do you think that's going to change the game? I mean, obviously there's things that go on the field all the time that we just can't hear, that other players may be obscured from. I mean, now it's an open mic all night long.
Well,
no, I don't think so. I mean, sorry to,
no.
Dustin was yelling at, a couple guys up at the bat that one day and teasing. They're going to forget about stuff up there with us there and going to keep talking. I don't think that's going to change, too much unless they're mandated, but still.
Well, I read a funny story out of an interview that the NBA commissioner gave to ESPN or CBS Sportsline about their telecasts. They're basically broadcasting every game, and he actually said during this interview that the league and the networks were considering a tape delay because it is going to be so quiet in the arenas. They're not going to have 20, 25,000 people in there, and you're literally only going to have probably about 100 people or maybe even less in the arena, and you can hear everything. And he was concerned about language, I guess, more than anything else. And he said that jokingly said that they were going to, probably have to have a tape delay. But, then he said, well, actually we are considering it. So, it's definitely a different thing. I mean, the thing that's going to be, the issue that's going to be very interesting is to see how these changes that they're making now in 2020 going to carry on in 2021, 2022, how that's going to carry on, like everybody's fear right now is that most of these leagues are going to say like, well, we really like the photographers not being there, or we really like the photographers not being on field level. And so that's why I've been saying to anybody that listens that, we need to make our voices heard in terms of why we need to be closer to the action. Looking at Keith's and Jose's pictures is very illustrative. Angle of view, being closer. Those intimate pictures that Jose talked about. At least from lower down in the bowl, like in the first or second row, you still. I mean. The best illustration of that is that detail picture he had of a glove and a hand. We can't get anything near that from two sections up. So it's going to change, depending on how teams handle this. It's going to change how we cover things, and hopefully, in a year or 2 years, that we're back field level. The photo positions, field level photo positions at Dodger Stadium are actually in the dugouts. So I got a feeling that that's going to be a big concern. I don't think they're going to keep that. They're going to have to figure out a way to put us somewhere, and it may be maybe in the upper deck like we are now.
So, Bert, can I mention something?
Yes.
The Oakland A's are doing, like everyone, right? They're doing a tier system, right? So there's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So us media folks, we're tier 3.
Right.
And I've been noticing that the social media people for the baseball teams, they're I believe they're tier 2, which allows them onto the field. So this is where I think it's heading, is that the baseball organizations, each team is going to be able to like say, you know what, don't go to the LA Times, don't go to the East Bay Times, don't go to our website, go to our Instagram, go to us, because we will have those images for you that you so desperately need to see. And so like I know for a fact that the team photographer for the Giants, they're allowing her everywhere, access where we wouldn't even, the same spot we had before, but now they're everywhere. And so I think this is going to be a perfect example of basically just to push us back even further, and it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt.
I guarantee it. I guarantee it's gonna happen with Dodgers. I mean, right now, John's not even allowed on the field. Now their social media people can walk down in the stands and walk around the whole place, and he can walk around the whole stadium, but he's not even allowed on the field. And I'm not sure what Blaine is doing at Angels right now. Although, hey, they did, by the way, at Angels pumped in game sounds to play sounds of the game.
What?
And they had cardboard cutouts of fans in a little section of the stadium. That's because he told me that. But other than that, I haven't heard much else. Dodgers didn't do any of that. In fact, the Dodgers didn't even have their music up loud at all. It was really low. It's unlike them. Usually they would play it a lot louder. But anyway, the social people, they were able to go. Sometimes they get in John's way a lot of times. The guys with the iPhones and stuff like that. They got a job to do too. So it is what it is. But at Dodgers, in past they've tried to make us pay for content a little bit. They tried. It didn't work out a couple years ago. But I wouldn't be surprised if they try at some point to keep us off the field. Our photo spots are in the dugout anyway. So it's going to be a while before we go back there, if at all. I mean, they could see where we're at now and say, hey, that works. They're out of our way. We'll corral them in a section, when fans are allowed back, and we'll be there, back on platforms or something like that. If before they took the platforms away because citing fire marshal, but the platforms had been there like 12 years. So I'm not sure where that came from. So yeah, everything's going to change. Just like NBA is going to probably lose more spots and be overhead, especially at Staples. It's going to happen. Yeah, it will.
Well, the restart of the NBA. I mean, it's already it's you got to get your pictures from the NBA, or get
right.
it. And,
well, you got to go sit there like AP. They're taking somebody and they've got to quarantine for 14 days, and then basically they got to go back and forth to the arena to shoot basketball. You can't really do anything else. So I don't know. I don't think I'd want to do that for 3 months or whatever they're going to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that's changing a lot over here is every time a player tests positive, everything stops. And but it's taking a while. Like we couldn't even have we were supposed to have a practice yesterday, but they didn't have it until they got the test results back because of the 4th of July weekend. Everything got pushed back, and they had practice at 7:00. And by that time, they said, "You know what? You're not invited. Sorry, we're done."
Well, yesterday's practice for the Dodgers was what? 2 hours, if that most.
Yeah.
It probably wasn't even that long. So I don't know what that was about.
Yeah.
And then we've already had, I think Dodgers have lost, or 2 players have said they're not going to play, including David Price. And I think there's 4 players that haven't shown, including Jansen, I guess, right? That haven't even shown up for.
Their closer. Price was going to be their number 3 starter, and I think their number 5 or number 6 starter also has not shown up. And that's either an indication that A, they've tested positive, but they can't release that information, or B, they're still trying to decide whether or not they want to play or not. I mean, every day it seems that there are more and more players that are opting out. And I know for younger players, it's going to be tough because they need the money. And guys like David Price, who are making a lot of money, and he's older. I mean, he's 34, 35. It's maybe a little bit easier decision to make, but.
Well, we talked about that earlier too, Bert. What kind of name is going to take to have like a baseball player to come out and say, you know what, we're not doing this. I'm not doing this.
Mike Trout hasn't decided yet. So, right, last I heard yesterday, he still hadn't decided yet. That could be a name like that.
Yeah.
But hey,
if you have a Mike Trout, right now, I mean, David Price is a big name, but I mean, he's not quote unquote the best player in baseball like Mike Trout. If Mike Trout decides that A, he's having a kid in another month or two, and B, he can afford it, and says, I'm just not going to play, that's going to be that's going to be big news. That's going to impact a lot of, you might find other players that have already said they're going to opt in, reconsider. I mean, you're literally talking about the best player in baseball that still has not decided whether or not he wants to play in this 60 game season.
So right now, when you're going out to shoot baseball and you want to shoot the Mookie Betts and whoever's out there, the big names, but remember those low guys on the 40-man roster, they could become part of the story, and don't be afraid to shoot them. Even guys you're not sure who they are yet, shoot them. You'll figure it out. But they could become something, and this could become a story where there's, like 81, where there was a lot of players brought up and that you didn't hear of, and they played through and then became something. But that was a strike year. So in other years too, in the early 90s when we had that strike, and there was a lot of players that come up and stayed. So you never know. So don't be afraid to shoot guys just because you think they're that low on the depth charts and they're not going to play. But you never know.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Keith, because for us, I started photograph. Something that I learned through experience was that, like NASCAR, you photograph every car that drives by you because you never know who's going to win, right? So I photographed every player out there that I couldn't identify, and we had a story on the one guy that was the one that had the biggest opinion, and I had made one frame of him, but they used it because he came out and said, "This is ridiculous. How can we do our job without the proper PPEs and proper testing?" And I was surprised by that, but luckily I was able to make it film.
Well, and don't be afraid. And when you get home, be diligent and file all those. Take time, or whenever you have time, to file all that extra 20 or 30 images that might not mean much to you right now, but shots of the stadium, shots of players you don't know, the little details. You file those because they end up getting used somewhere along the line, or you want to pull them out and you have that. You could say, "Hey, I have that. I got that picture of whatever it might be. I shot that guy,"
That's one of the reasons why I've been bugging you guys about trying to get that good angle of shooting Dodger Stadium, and see the empty seats and the Dodger Stadium sign, because that picture is going to run a lot because it's iconic in terms of showing a stadium. It's empty.
It does get used a lot. I've used mine for years. It's gotten used. The one I shot years ago, and then we feed to Getty and stuff, so it gets used a lot. Those things get used all over the place for our paper, everywhere. Yeah, you're right. It's up on the hill. It's a nice spot.
Yeah.
Josh has got a good question. So one of the things we've been talking about at work because there's only going to be one person going to the game. So for me, I probably get that first game, and then I have to figure out, am I going to set up remotes? They said I could set up a remote, but I have to get there, right when they let me in, and then I have to set up everything before the players are even out. And then at the end of the game, I am allowed to pick up those remotes, but I have to wait till everyone to leave, and then they have a mandatory time that we have to be out of the stadium. So this is going to be one of those interesting situations where sending photos on deadline, trying to get all your remotes, picked up all your remotes. This is going to be an interesting discussion because and Josh, this is a great question because it's like, we're documenting this for history, right? So this is one of those things where we got to show an empty stadium the first few games, right? Just to show, and the atmosphere. And so I've been trying to get in my head the kind of images I want to make that will show what it's like to be there. And it's hard because we can't move. We're kind of stuck in those spots.
Yeah,
well,
we're
lucky
in LA, right, Keith? Because we literally are 3 steps away from the table where we transmit from. So we shoot a little bit, turn around, file, which is totally different than the way the setup we have during the normal season. Actually, that's one of the few advantages we've had under the new rules of engagement here, is that before we literally would have to leave the field, go into the stadium, go to a room to transmit, and miss like a couple of innings, whereas now we're literally like 3 steps away from where we transmit from, and we can just put our camera down, take a card, walk over to our computer, put it in there, and then transmit. And that's been really good. And matter of fact, Keith and I talked a long time about we're going to get kicked out and we're going to have to transmit from the stadium, but they want us to leave the parking lot. We're going to have to go to Philippe's, and we'll get a sandwich and then we'll transmit. And we've been really lucky in that I've been done transmitting before the time they the deadline for us to get out of the stadium. How that works now when games actually start is going to be interesting. But you're right, Jose, in terms of like especially when we get late in the season or we get into the playoffs, you normally want to have 2 photographers, 3 photographers, and an editor there, and you're not going to have that. It's going to be basically one ranger, one riot. One riot, one ranger. You're going to be a one-man band. You have to shoot, edit, and transmit.
So wait, I was thinking about that, but we could, like Josh said, I was thinking about using a wireless transmitter, take the picture, voice tag it, send it to the editor at the office, sitting in in a nice comfy in front, not the office, sorry, at home, because we don't have anybody in the office. And I'm thinking about doing that and start talking to my editors about that way. So at least we have somebody. So that allows me not to edit anymore, which would be an interesting concept.
Which leads me to, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Go ahead. We
are going to have another Zoom session on Saturday, our first Saturday session with Josh. And Josh is going to talk about working and transmitting pictures straight out of your camera. And so this is something that, was pretty important beforehand, but now that I think about it, it is something that's going to be extraordinarily important, not only for guys like you guys that cover, Major League Baseball and the NBA and the NFL, but also, for, any, because these kind of restrictions, especially in numbers, is going to trickle down to colleges and the small colleges and junior colleges and the high school. God forbid, what the high schools are going to have, are faced with in terms of restarting. But this may be a point where one, knowing how to tether and transmit straight out of your camera or transmit without a laptop using a mobile device, and then 2, also the guys on the receiving end. The guys that are actually going to have to take in pictures, caption them, and then put them on social media and also put them on your website and your newspapers. That's also going to be another job that's going to appear, and you might find more of them because we're not going to be able to work remotely on the field and cover games and also, transmit and edit. And we're going to be doing that. That session will be Saturday. I was going to announce it after this session, but the details will come. But Josh is very nicely volunteered, and I put air quotes around volunteer.
Well, let me go back to remotes real quick here before I forget. So first, if you're going to do remotes or you want to do remotes, go to your team photographer and go to the PR guy and talk to him and see what the plan is, because don't expect it to be there. So at Dodgers, Mark and I, a couple people, we've been talking about doing remotes. We do a lot of remotes at Dodger Stadium. Well, we can't do center field and we can't do the normal spots, but we can at the moment. We're going to be able to do behind home plate, down low, where we haven't been able to do in regular season, and it'll be a nice spot. And there's a couple different angles where they have railings down and we can clamp on remotes, and we're going to put a long remote extension bar so we can do remotes. And they're going to run the box so we can plug in Ethernet to those remotes, which will be great. So we don't have to touch those. Now, the tricky part is, you got to be there. You got to have them in. Your window is going to be like a half an hour, to get those remotes in and gone, because it's 3 hours before for us, I think, to get there. But the players go on the field pretty quick, and we can't be down there putting remotes up when the players are on the field. Even though we're not on the field, we can't be there. So we're only going to have a short window to put those up. So we're working with them to, make sure to confirm that. But you want to talk to your team people to make sure that if you want to do remotes, you can do them. And, make sure the connectivity, you want to at least have an Ethernet box where you can plug in Ethernet from your camera to that box. You can try, with no people there, that WT7 or 6 might work, but, test it a couple times.
So we're talking, we're talking about letting us keep our cameras there the whole season, like the remote cameras. Have you guys talked about that?
Yeah, I was thinking that might be easier and quote unquote easier, like we used to be able to do it at Staples Center when we had overhead remotes. We would have to put it in before the season started, and we just left it there. Yeah. The problem with a lot of organizations is that leaving a camera out exposed, it's very different than having a camera in a catwalk at an arena.
Yeah.
This is outside in the elements. I don't know if you would you would definitely, I think that would be a definite issue in terms of like dirt on the lens and dirt on the camera, and
I would say no. It's one thing leaving it for a homestand or for a World Series playoff for a couple of games, and you bag them. We would bag them and seal them, but I don't think you're going to leave it up permanently for that.
Listen, I got 3 D1Hs I can put out. I'm fine.
Yeah, I'd love to have it. I'd love to have a D1H. I would love to get like a D700. Some people say that's the greatest digital camera ever is the D700.
It is. I have one. I love it.
I never had one.
What?
No,
we had 2 of them.
It has a built-in flash.
I got 2 D300s, and then right after that, like 6 months later, the D700 came out, and I was like, Tanawaki, wait, you never told me that you're coming out with a full frame camera that's just as good as a D300. Come on, but hey, it is what it is. But back to what both Keith and Jose have been saying is that we really have to talk it up. Not among just photographers like we are here, but you need to talk to your schools, you need to talk to your teams, you need to talk to if you're working with Division I or professional teams, you got to let your intentions known now, and you need to know the restrictions or what kind of limits are going to put on you. You got to start asking about that now. Like and you can't tell me that football teams have not at least started talking about what kind of plans they have. I mean, they have to have started figuring out plans. So just putting a bug in the SID's ear or the school administrator's ear about, hey, we still want to cover you guys, and don't forget about us. Even if it's just, hey, don't forget about us. We're important to your team as well in terms of getting pictures out to the public and covering the news.
It's very important to do that, because remember, they can only say no if you ask. I mean, but if you think that even your editors, but much less anybody, the PR department, are really thinking about photo all the time, they're probably not. So you want to make sure that you remind them that you're there too, and you're on the same level as the reporters, and you need to get your coverage just like they do. So you have to remind them in a nice, cordial way, and then just keep pushing it little by little.
Yeah.
Or you won't get anything.
It doesn't hurt to start now. I mean, we're in mid-July, and plans for football season are being made in terms of, even if they're, considering canceling the season, they're making contingency plans on how they're going to play games, and plans for the media, including photographers, have got to be addressed. And so trying to push that so that's a little more in their consciousness is very, very important, whether or not it's, the Los Angeles Angels or Hart High School here in Valencia. Do anybody have any questions? If you want to unmute yourself and throw out a question.
Hey, one last question, everybody. Though, when you're going into this, think of storytelling. Go into it with the narrative. Think of storytelling through this whole process. Because this is history for you. So think of telling a story.
And one thing before we leave, every time I leave that place, I wipe down everything. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
You just have to wipe down your gear, because I'm putting my gear down everywhere, and I really have to be cautious. And sometimes I forget about that because you just think, you're out in the open, but still, you got to be careful. Just letting you know.
That's it. Just don't count on anybody else to disinfect and clean, even though they say they might be doing it.
Let's see. Will Brown asks about wiping down your camera. Do you have any tips or best practices? I have out in the garage an area that I drop off my gear, and I have different disinfectants and cleaning wipes that I use to wipe down the camera. Don't forget the straps. Actually, the straps are probably going to carry more potential problems than the glass and the metal. So make sure you wipe down. I have an alcohol mixture that Debbie Conlon, who is on this call with us, recommended, and a website that I have a spray bottle of that in my garage, and I have a spray bottle of that in my trunk of my car. Myung Chun, our good friend from Los Angeles Times, he has a spray bottle of an antibacterial mixture that he concocts, and he sprays down his shoes before he gets into his car. something I hadn't even thought about. But no, I wipe down my gear. I change my clothes in the garage. I take out my clothes in the garage. I wipe down the steering wheel and seats and the gear shift and all of that stuff. You can only be, so careful, but you need to be.
Any
Common
questions?
sense.
Where did they put the national anthem singer?
He was wearing a suit. He was wearing a suit. Couldn't tell who he was. Wasn't one of the regular guys we see all the time. And he did it from out in the field behind home plate like they normally do.
Was it Placido Domingo?
Nah, I wish. He was about as off key as you can get. It was just so funny because it was just an intra-squad game, not inter-squad game like a couple of wire service guys put out. It was just an intra-squad game, and so they were coming. They came out of the dugout and they're standing there like they normally do. I was thinking, what are they doing? And then you heard the national anthem a cappella, and I was like, "You're kidding!" And oh my God, I was on Justin Turner, and I got to give him credit. He had a smile on his face, and he didn't break down laughing about it. But it was pretty off key. But it's trying to be as close to game as you possibly can. I got to actually admire that. But they didn't have walk-up songs. They didn't have songs between innings. During, it was just like watching a spring training game without any audio.
Did you have a broadcaster saying like up to bat?
No. There's no PA, none of that. It was just just a practice, like you'd see it like a high school or a college. They were just a practice. And then the only thing, like I said, is that they had that national anthem, and it was so and it was very, very quiet. You could hear players talking, and you can hear even things going on in the outfield. It was just very, very bizarre, and you definitely could hear balls in strike.
I see Sarah with a little baby.
Oh, hey, Sarah.
He just woke up. It was nap time, so I have my headphones on and I'm listening. But I did just want to chime in about you guys disinfecting all your gear and let you know that what we're using for Nikon internally is a 70% absolute ethanol solution.
Good to know.
So 70% ethanol, 30% water. Don't spray it directly on the equipment, just kind of saturate or dampen a cloth, and then use that to wipe everything down. And it's I checked yesterday to see if there were any adverse reactions from any of the equipment that they've been receiving in-house, and so far everything is good. So because we always suggest testing it on a small portion of whatever first, but just FYI, I think that they received that from somewhere on the CDC website that that's effective. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Jose,
Great.
this is Libby's new baby, by the way. Look, where she bites my hand.
I love it.
All the way from Tennessee, right?
It's just a Tennessee. Her name's Lady, but she's not acting like one.
Well,
How old
anyway,
is she, Keith?
Huh?
How old is she?
8 months. Libby got her.
Oh, no
7
wonder
months.
she acts like a puppy.
Yeah. So that's her new baby. She wanted to show it off.
oh. Anyway,
Yeah.
Thank you all for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. And again, I'm going to send out information about Josh Barber's session that he's going to do on this Saturday morning. And I think it's going to be actually very, very cool. Even if you're not, going to be covering things remotely like we're trying to do at MLB games. But I think just overall, that's just the way things are going nowadays is posting immediately to websites and social media. So Josh will be covering that on Saturday. So again, thank you guys very, very much. We're going to continue on through the summer with these Zoom meetups, Sports Shooter Academy Zoom meetups. I want to thank all of you, and I also want to thank, I'm glad Sarah's here, and I also want to thank Nikon Professional Services for sponsoring the workshop and then sponsoring all of our events that we're doing throughout the year. Without their support, we can't possibly do any of this stuff. And whether or not you shoot Nikon or some other brand, we all really owe a great amount of thanks to Sarah and Paul Van Allen and Nikon Professional Service. So thanks a lot, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you on Saturday morning, 9:30, and it'll be with Josh.